analysis right now from Chris Bambery in London, who's a political analyst specializing in the Middle East. Good to see you there, sir. Is the Sunni demand for more independence a realistic goal?
I think it is realistic, given that the Kurds in the north have effectively separated from the rest of Iraq. But I think it's an unfortunate decision, and it's based, as your contributor just said, on a decision by the Americans when they occupied Iraq to separate Iraq off into these three areas. Iraq has been a unified country for a long time, and yet doing so based on a sectarian head count by dividing the country up, particularly by excluding the Sunnis from having any control of the oil fields, was a recipe for sectarian conflict, and that's what we've seen. But what's adding spice to that is the question of what's happening across the border in Syria, because we are seeing an alliance between al-Qaeda elements in Syria and Sunni Salafists in Iraq. They've united and are involved in carrying out these attacks. And I think anyone in Iraq must be terrified that the situation in Syria is spilling over into Iraq, and indeed across the region we're seeing the possibility of further tension, the possibility of that spilling over into Lebanon. So this sectarian violence, which is terrible in Iraq, is now becoming very intertwined with what's going on in Syria, with almost an open border between the two countries there.
So should they be handed the self-rule, would that stop the violence?
No, I don't think it would stop the violence. I don't think the people who are carrying out the sectarian attacks, particularly the targeting of Shia, are motivated by the issue of creating an autonomous region for the essentially majority Sunni population. They're motivated by sectarianism, let's be honest about this. And even if they were granted autonomy within Iraq, they're going to use that as a continuation for carrying out those sectarian killings. And as I say, they're being spurred on by what is happening in Syria, which is increasingly a sectarian conflict. So no, my answer is it will not stop the sectarian killings. I think, unfortunately, they're only likely to get worse.
I just want to follow up on what you've just said. Where then do you draw the line, allowing them more freedom to self-govern, and then the country is disintegrating at the same time? Is that the sectarian issues you're talking about?
Yeah, the country is disintegrating. As I say, the Americans have to take the blame for that because of the system they imposed in Iraq, giving virtual independence to the Kurds in the north, who of course were allied with them against Saddam Hussein, and then suggesting that it be split along Sunni Shia lines in the rest of Iraq, and that opened up a Pandora's box, which really I think it's almost impossible to stop now. But it's not going to stop the sectarian violence, as I said. And I think people across the world should be absolutely clear where the responsibility for that lies. It does lie with the Americans and what they did in 2003 and the subsequent occupation of that country.
Well, what about Syria? Is this heading in the same direction? Is Syria heading in the same direction?
That must be the fear, because as I say, there is almost an open border between Syria and Iraq. There are many refugees from Syria inside Iraq, and we've now seen an alliance between al-Qaeda elements in Syria and al-Qaeda elements in Iraq, who are involved in sectarian violence in both countries. We have Iraqis fighting alongside the Free Syrian Army and Islamicists inside Syria. So the possibility of this, in fact, I would say actually the thing is spreading, and increasingly the sectarian campaign in Iraq is becoming deeply connected to that inside Syria. And so the geography of instability is spreading, and that threatens to destabilize elsewhere in the Middle East, particularly Lebanon.
Let's talk about Lebanon, Mr. Bambery. Hezbollah now is involved in Syria. How much will this influx of military manpower going to shift momentum in the fighting?
I think the fighting has been in an impasse now for some time. Neither side is capable of producing a decisive victory. Whether Hezbollah, with its battle-trained fighters, trained against the Israelis, can shift the balance, let's see. But let's be clear as well, there is intervention from the other side. It's clear, everyone on the dog knows the Saudis and Qataris are pouring arms in, the Americans are providing training. And if Hezbollah increases its intervention on the side of the Assad regime, I think it is likely there'll be a growing clamour for further Western intervention. And certainly the governments in America and in Britain seem quite keen on increasing, certainly arming the rebels inside Syria and providing other means. So I think we're at a very dangerous time. And at the moment, I think, when it comes to the question of Syria, one thing is very important. I think the decision to exclude Iran from next week's conference in Geneva on the possibility of a political solution is profoundly mistaken, because there can be no agreement between the various powers in the world over the question of Syria without Iran being at the table.
We're in dangerous times, says Chris Bambery, political analyst and Middle East specialist, speaking to us here on RT. Thank you.